The story of Blame takes place in a vast megastructure known as the City, where our protagonist treks for centuries throughout the dystopian megastructure. In the prequel Noise, we find out that the structure originated as a small city built by humans utilizing the Netsphere, an advanced version of the internet that only people with the net terminal gene can access. Originally created to solve all worldly problems like solving aging or illness, humans with the genetic modifier could also use the Netsphere to command large robotic builders to construct structures from digital templates. And because of this, the ratio of non-gene members to normal humans grew, and builders were commanded to further expand the city in order to handle the rising population. And that's when a cult of cyborgs or silicon-based life known as the Order manufactures a virus to infect anyone with a net terminal gene, causing their gene to mutate and rendering it useless. In an attempt to limit the infection spread, upper members of the Netsphere order the safeguards to target and kill any humans without the net terminal gene. The safeguards are a security system for the city, and they also use the same silicon technology that the cyborgs use. But it was too late. With everyone possessing an unmutated version of the net terminal gene gone, the builders were left to fully excavate Earth and autonomously build outwards and occupy much of the solar system, disassembling planet after planet to use for more architecture. This is also why the city is riddled with linear supporting structures and transportation lines, to transport materials like heavy metal-based construction fluid and continue outwards expansion. The structure exists almost like a Dyson sphere of onion layers stacked vertically on each other, sometimes referred to as a strata. Each level takes longer and longer to reach than the last. We're not talking months, but several years, and usually with a barrier in between that's too dense to navigate through. Unless you're the main character who has a gravitational beam emitter, a device that can shoot cleanly and infinitely in the direction it's shot in. As the distance increases from the center, so does the amount of obstacles, buildings, hostile safeguards, surviving human tribes, and silicon-based cyborgs you encounter. And this is what our main character Killy finds as he journeys for millenniums throughout the megastructure in search for a human with a net terminal gene who would theoretically command the builders to stop expanding the megacity and prevent safeguards from wiping out the remaining of humanity entirely. But in this video, we're going to focus on the inspiration behind the many beautiful structures Nihei Tsutomu created. Tsutomu studied architecture at the Parsons School of Design, and there are two themes to the dystopian architecture that he creates. The two are brutalism and futurism. Brutalism originated in the 1950s United Kingdom as a response to the end of World War II. It originally focused on showcasing bare building materials and support structures with exposed concrete or brick in geometric shapes. This gave the style characteristics such as function over individual style. These buildings feel great when combined with nature and optimistic settings like universities or the safe havens in Dune, but can become depressing, intimidating, or menacing in certain gloomy urban settings. It does this by magnifying the limiting feeling that you are only a cog in the machine, being forced to interact with the world on a pre-existing assembly line of options and decisions. In the opening panel, we're shown Killy escorting a possible carrier along one of the many extruded bridges located between two vertical growing walls or pillars. And this is a common theme of some of the early architecture in Blame. In certain areas, the builders seem to prioritize constructing vertically, with supporting transportation lines in between. Some are made of colossal industrial walls, while other structures involve remnants of human-accessible architecture, like stairs and elevators, and even random monuments. Either way, their intent is vertical ascension, and this makes sense from an autonomous building perspective, because as resources become more scarce, allocating construction resources to vertical structures with horizontal supporting bridges and shafts seems to be the most rational thing to do. And it's within these large structures that you find inner caves of cramped shelters, but by far the most common feature you find are inner corridors, deep tunnels, and infinitely repeating dens of supporting pillars. And it's not just industrial buildings and shelters. Within these pillars are also towers of cramped residential structures. While these residential structures are optimized to exist along vast walls or in cramped vertical pillars, every once in a while Tsutomu shows us these beautiful panels layered with a hierarchical ant maze of cliffside shelves, bridges, and stairways. And my favorite residential structure is in this panel. The curved archways, clusters of openings and stairs built along steep cliffs, and mazes of narrow alleyways remind me of the Cycladic architecture found on Santorini. Builder robots that construct these sectors don't attack humans, but it's not uncommon for inhabitants to fear them. This is because builders construct structures based on lingering memory data of digital templates, sometimes causing a recursive structure that will build over itself until the structures become uninhabitable, forcing them to migrate along one of the long connecting bridges to another chunk of the map. And it's on the other side of this bridge that Killy encounters a large city of humans called the Cluster City. The Cluster City was built in a strata that contained little to no safeguard structures, which allowed humanity to survive easier. On the outer skirts of the city, you'll find more hive-like buildings, but on the inside you'll find a megacity filled with open expansions, busy shopping centers, and urban-like slums in between. Above the cluster's grid-like chunks are cylindrical ascension towers, and in this panel, we see the start of what will soon become the dominant theme in the later half of Blame. Killy and his scientist friend Sibo make their way through the strata layer above and are led to Toha Industries, a massive spacecraft separate from the main authority. The outside of Toha Industries mixes futuristic loading docks with freestanding staircases. And Tsutomu must have accidentally ate the whole brownie instead of just the corner, because on the inside we see the architecture style going from futuristic, to liminal, to industrial, to gothic Dr. Seuss. The final moments of Blame center around Killy treading through infinitely long expanses. Some have their own climate, atmosphere, sometimes even dirt, while others are riddled with metal that have developed large magnetic fields. Killy finds himself inside infinitely long staircases and ladders, steep sloped tons of metal and concrete, and a pattern of endless grid-like structures. By far the biggest space is this dark room that's supposedly the same size as Jupiter's diameter. A cyborg he meets there suggests that the city's construction is still ongoing, and that at one point the city's raw materials were once stored here. The evidence can be seen by the enormous builders all around. The only way out of this space is a central access tower that once acted to stabilize the materials that were stored here. Killy proceeds to climb up the tower and continue his pursuit. I won't spoil the plot's ending, but I will say that while on the surface this manga seems like an excuse for Tsutomu to draw buildings, it's clear that he wanted to tell a story through micro-location details and world building, as opposed to your standard linear character development. I hope you enjoyed.